Good morning, everyone. This is Michael O'Malley here with the Hurricane Season 2020 update, part of the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 7th, 2020, recorded around 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We're first of all right here in the tropical Atlantic. We do have a lot to discuss this morning. First of all, we do have a tropical wave. We're going to start far out here across the North and West Atlantic Basin. We do have a tropical disturbance right now that was kind of left by a lingering front in through here that Omar eventually kind of took on out to sea. This kind of lingering area of energy has prompted a little bit of spin in the atmosphere here just to the south of Bermuda. And again, right now it's not very well organized, but you can see that there is some circulation to it. And over the next couple of days, this will generally be heading off towards the west or northwest here. So this could impact land over the next several days over towards the Carolinas. So that's just one thing to kind of be mindful of. Water temperatures out in this region are obviously very warm, but obviously we can see here that we do have a frontal system right now that is kind of moving across the North Atlantic Basin right now, and that should kind of bring some vertical wind shear with it. So not really expecting any significant organization, but there might be a tropical depression or storm that does come out of it, especially given these warm water temperatures. So folks here in the Carolinas obviously need to be monitoring everything, but as of right now, there is nothing to be significantly concerned about. In the Caribbean, we did have a wave that we were watching yesterday, but that wave has now since really been convectively anemic, really has not done much, and that is in response because of this upper level trough and upper level low that is positioned over portions of the Florida Keys and the Bahama region right now. This big upper level low is sitting right about here, and this is inducing some vertical wind shear out of the southwesterly direction, as again, a low pressure center is kind of a counterclockwise circulation, so you would kind of assume that there is some southwesterly shear being impinged, either some west or southwesterly shear being impinged on this wave right now, and there is also some dry air that is being pulled in from the continental areas of obviously Central America and Mexico, so that's really going to hinder much in the way of any organization with this wave, and the Hurricane Center has completely dropped any development chances with that. Now, as we turn our attention back out towards the east here, we do have Tropical Depression 17 and Tropical Depression 18. This will be the main focus of our video today and kind of going over everything with that. If we zoom in a closer zoomed up shot here, we can see that we do have a pretty organized two systems here. First of all, we'll start with the far eastern one. Tropical Depression 18 is nearing a tropical storm status right now as it approaches the Cabo Verde Islands, which is right here. Again, this will be moving off towards the west-northwest over the next few days, and this is expected to bring tropical storm conditions to portions of the Cabo Verde Islands, and as such, a tropical storm warning has been issued for a portion of the Cabo Verde Islands, as this will likely become a tropical storm beforehand, and then eventually a hurricane as this turns probably on out to sea over the next few days. But there's a lot of complicating factors, which we'll get here to in a moment. And then obviously Tropical Depression 17 out here. Again, right now it's a little bit better organized. There is deep convective burst firing closer to the center. So it is a tropical depression. There is some outflow, some very thin line outflow bound or outflow that is occurring on the very tops of the storm to the north. So there is an outflow pool trying to be established here. But you notice that there's a lot of dry air kind of lurking out through here, and we'll talk about more of what this kind of feature is. This is basically a tropical upper tropospheric trough, and this is going to induce some shear on Tropical Depression 17, but we'll get to that here in a moment. So right now with Tropical Depression 17, we do expect that this will probably become a tropical storm by later today. Maximum sustained winds right now are near 35 miles per hour, moving west-northwest at about 6. Again, the trade winds in this region are very slow, so this is going to be a very slow mover, at least up until Wednesday or Thursday. After that time, the trade winds, as this gain latitude, obviously, as this starts to gain a little bit more of latitude, this is expected to then kind of encounter a more stronger trade wind coming from the east. So you're not going to be getting these westerly trade winds that are down here across the intertropical convergence zone in the main development region, you're now going to be getting a lot faster easterly winds, and that is going to help to push our storm in a more faster direction here. Now, after that time, there is a big ridge of high pressure, which we'll talk about here in a moment, that is expected to kind of weaken down from a trough digging over the central and northeastern United States. This should begin to help Tropical Depression 17 initially kind of bending from the west. It now begins to lift north again. However, this is just where the center is. And again, this cone represents any possible location where this kind of center could be. And about 2/3 of the time, the center remains in that cone. And about 1 out of every 3 times, the center is outside of that cone. So that's just kind of the statistical probabilities for the error of the margin of error there. But in a sense, this should continue to move west-northwest. Now, after that time, the steering pattern becomes complicated, and there is a lot of complicating factors as to where this is going to end up going, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. With Tropical Depression 18, much of the same kind of uncertainty exists. This should become a tropical storm again later today, so it's kind of really a race between who gets the Pauletta name. But this should become a tropical storm later today, and tropical storm warnings are in effect for the Cabo Verde Islands as such. So again, gusty winds, heavy rainfall, squally conditions, maybe even some isolated tornadoes. That can be kind of generally expected for those areas with this system. Now, this is moving west at about 12 miles per hour, so it is moving a little bit quicker today. And this will be moving quickly on out from the Cabo Verde Islands. By tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening, this is now passing the islands and then expected to remain a tropical storm through at least Wednesday, through at least midweek. But by later this week, this should become a hurricane as it moves generally off towards the west-northwest. And again, the models differ on the potential solution in terms of where this thing could end up going. There's a wide range of possibilities extending from a more westerly track over here to a further north track and out to sea, where this obviously would be bending back. There's a lot of considerable uncertainty regarding those, which we'll start to discuss here. First of all, this is with Tropical Depression 17. This is the 6Z early track guidance cycle. And you can see that there's a big clustering of the tracks. There's what I want you to pay attention to is this kind of cluster in through here. That's the reliable model guidance right there. That's the most reliable guidance. Now, we do have other models such as the CMC, which is the CMCI, the TCLP, the TBAD, NGXI, and then the climate and the statistical climate and statistics, basically. And that is that model right there. And again, most of the models today, this morning, have this bend off towards the west. So this is unlikely to gain, at least in the short term, unlikely to gain a significant amount of latitude after that point. Now, eventually what ends up happening is you get the models that kind of bend back like this. They bend back a little bit to the left here, and then they start to take more of a northerly track. So again, this would be here about 56 west or so, and of course, the Lesser Antilles is right at about, 60 west or so, about, 60 to 63 west or so is where you start to really begin the Lesser Antilles, especially the northern. But this would be already well north of the islands at this time if we actually get here. There we go. So you can see 60 west is actually right about here. So that would be kind of putting it near Barbados, but farther toward the northeast, because we're looking, the official track forecast here is roughly at about 22 north and about 56 to 57 west. So that kind of correlates right here. Now, after that point in time, again, the models really differ because there is a wide range of possible solutions that concur. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Now, in terms of the intensity, most models do suggest, or pretty much all of the models that are on this track guidance do suggest that this will become a tropical storm at least within the next 24 hours or so. After the next 24 hours, continued slow but steady strengthening will be occurring to a modest tropical storm intensity, maybe at about 45 to 50 knots or so. After that time, we will probably and likely start to see a weakening trend, and most of the model guidance today, especially in the early track guidance cycle, is actually below the official intensity, which goes for a peak of right about 50 knots. So most of these models this morning have a pretty quick peak there at about 40 to 45 knots, and then dropping it off into tropical depression status and kind of killing off the storm after that point in time. And that is mainly due to vertical wind shear, which we'll talk about kind of why that's going to occur here in a moment. Now, in terms of Tropical Depression 18, there is also a lot of uncertainty regarding this system as well. First of all, we note here, this is the Cabo Verde Islands, which is right here. And again, most of the model guidance today does suggest, or at least this morning, that this will be on a west-northwesterly heading at least for the next little while. Bend back towards the left here, but bend back towards the west, and then resume a west-northwest motion. But you can see here between the H-Wharf, the HMON, the official, the TVCA, TVCN, basically there's a lot of considerable spread in the models, and really there is a pretty drastic kind of spread that can occur over the next several days. Anywhere from a further out to sea track towards a further left moving and westward moving system is possible. So there is a wide range of possibilities beyond about 5 days or so, which we'll start to touch on a little bit now. But real quickly, the intensity guidance, most of this suggests that this will become a hurricane over the next few days. And also, the National Hurricane Center also thinks that it will become a hurricane as well. So one thing that we're going to look at here is the ensembles. This is the European ensemble forecast from the 0Z run, from the run that was initialized at about 8 o'clock yesterday, or 8 o'clock p.m. In the evening time yesterday. And this got assimilated into the 0Z guidance and basically the overnight runs. So here we go. So this is right now, obviously, we have our two tropical systems with Tropical Depression 17 and Tropical Depression 18. Both of them likely to become a tropical storm over the next few days. And this is from weathernerds.org, but it points kind of a really good thing here. This these colors is your mean sea level pressures in here. So all of your, lighter mean sea level pressures is in this very green and kind of yellowish color, while your ridge basically is going to be denoted in the darker oranges and red colors in through here that are kind of faded out. So we'll move out here to at least the next about 48 hours or so. We'll go to hour 48 here on the Euro. Now, first of all, again, we notice that this ridge, it does start to kind of want to nose in at least a little bit. We can kind of go back and we can see the evolution of that ridge that is trying to build at least a little bit back in. So that's why we're getting these westerly trends today, because this ridge is going to build back in, at least temporarily. But we also have a pretty sharp trough digging in across the central United States right now. Now, after that time here, we'll go out to hour 72. Now, things start to defer a little bit. First of all, this little wave right here that the Hurricane Center is monitoring, we'll have to watch that pretty carefully. But you notice what starts to happen here with the ridge. We do get it building back in, at least temporarily, but then we also have a weakness in this ridge developing to the north. This is that potential vorticity streamer, that PV streamer, that is going to be inducing shear here on Tropical Depression 17. Okay, so continuing forward, we notice that little bit of a westerly dip, and then that's great. By hour 120, this is basically the 5-day realm here. You notice that a couple of models are trying to spin something off the Florida East Coast or whatever. Again, not really worried about that so much. But you can see now that ridge really starts to abate as you get a strong trough to kind of dig in through here. This basically erodes much of this ridge. So this ridge is very well eroded at that time. And you can start to see the signs of a potential recurving system out there and on out to sea. Now, this is day 5. And again, most of the models do suggest that the Tropical Depression 17 will kind of come up, do a little bit of a west, or kind of a west, the northwest, maybe bending back west a little bit, and then kind of getting carried out to sea. And this is the thing, the models are going to struggle to resolve this completely. Again, this is all in thanks because of a recurving typhoon in the Western Pacific. And that remnant energy is going to affect the mid-latitude energy of North America. So that's going to cause a disruption in the pattern. And we're starting to see that already. Now, if we go out here again to hour 150, this is hour 150 here. Again, there's considerable uncertainty. Now, there's also another wave coming off of Africa now, which we'll talk about towards the end of today's video. But we notice here that the ridge, once again, it starts to reestablish itself. Maybe some of the members go a little bit further west. And then you just kind of get more of a recurving signal as this ridge now starts to push on out to the east, getting invaded by another trough, and you get a further, kind of, northeast track like that. So it is entirely possible, but again, for our friends here in Bermuda, it is going to be something we have to watch. We should see then subsequently Tropical Depression 18, which is the wave right now coming or near the near the Cabo Verde Islands. That should eventually come out here and turn right around to this ridge and out to sea, but not everything is set in stone. Now, one of the things here that's very interesting, this is the 500 millibar geopotential height. This is basically at 18,400 feet in the atmosphere, and you're looking at your troughs in your ridges in the atmosphere. And again, we'll go out here, it's about 12 hours from now. What you really want to see if you want tropical cyclones to move further west, like if you're a tropical cyclone and you're going to go more west, you need a more substantial ridging, which is going to be this darker red color here. But if you're a tropical system and you're going out to sea, you really want to see something like this, the darker blue colors. This is a trough or an area of lower pressure. So what we can see here is that we have 12 hours from now, this is later today, we have a pretty strong trough that's kind of digging in across North America right now, mainly into Canada, but this will be cutting off. And we can notice another, upper level low right now over Florida. That's going to bring some heavy rain. And we also see a pretty substantial upper level system right now, upper level low near the Azore Islands. This is going to be responsible for some vertical wind shear, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Now, kind of going forward with time, we'll go out here to hour 72. And again, the GFS model isn't really depicting much of a significant storm in the higher latitudes, but that's fine. All we're looking for right now is mainly the ridge and everything else. Now, assuming our storms are still down in this region, somewhere, there's a pretty big alleyway out to sea right here. Again, this is, a building ridge, but it's over the far north Atlantic Basin. This is over the far north Atlantic Basin up there in the easternlies, and you're not really getting a lot of significant trades to kind of build back in, or significant ridging to build back in over here to really force our storms west. You don't have that here. What you have is actually a pretty strong weakness in this ridge off towards the north. So you eventually actually can get a recurving storm to kind of curve out like something like that. You can get a quick recurving storm out there. Okay, so that's cool. We'll move it forward. You notice that this ridge starts to significantly degrade, and we also start to get a cutoff trough over central United States right now. This is going to bring all the snow and everything else in kind of cahoots with that first trough, but you can see that this ridge starts to break down pretty significantly. You have very significant troughing towards the north and the northern latitudes, as you would generally expect. But all of that energy now up here towards the north is kind of breaking down this ridge of high pressure towards the north, and thus you're not getting a very strong ridge out here. You're actually getting an area of low pressure down in this region. Again, that favors a recurving storm path out and away from land for the moment. And that kind of general pattern persists all the way out to about hour 174, which finally, in the model here, we do have a tropical cyclone on the model by 12Z next Monday, or yeah, this is by September 14th. So this would be probably about, yeah, this would be a week out from today. But again, you know, this is something here on the model field. We'll have to watch to see if that verifies. That, excuse me, that would initially then probably be forcing our storm due westernly. But again, we have a very significant cutoff low here, big trough building in. You can see where there's a lot of uncertainties regarding the models here. Now, regarding the Euro, again, the Euro is much kind of in cahoots here along the same general kind of consensus here. Again, the Euro suggests that a ridge would start to build back in here after about hour 72. This first wave of troughiness kind of gets absorbed. We get a ridge to start building back in. But you notice that what we still have is, while there is more ridging out here across Africa and near the Lesser Antilles, or not the Lesser Antilles, the Cabo Verde Islands, there is still a pretty significant weakness right here, and that doesn't seem to want to fill in. So we're probably sending our storms on some type of a recurve pattern, and eventually the Euro at hour 144 completely breaks down this ridge, and you have a very strong trough in through here. And that's kind of a paradise for storms to turn out and away to sea. So with that being said, we're probably likely going to see at least 90, or at least Tropical Depression 17 and 18 turn out to sea at some point in time. Now, whether that happens here, you know, a little bit later, maybe affects Bermuda and turns out, or whether that's earlier, it doesn't affect land at all. You know, again, remains to be the biggest question. But the models, again, you know, don't seem to be super enthusiastic about keeping, you know, a system heading westward towards the United States. So, again, you know, it is something to watch because this is, you know, further west than what we've seen in the previous days. But we are not seeing a significant signal that's going to send our systems, you know, barreling and hurtling towards the United States. That just isn't happening right now. So it seems likely, especially given all these troughs and everything that kind of come down through here, this is kind of the year, or this time of the season, where you start to get these troughs to kind of, you know, come down, they dig down, and they scoop our systems up, they break the ridge down, they weaken it, and you get your recurving, you know, tropical storms or hurricanes. So at least for right now, it seems as if we're not going to have any significant land concerns going forward over the next several days. But it is something we've got to watch, because the pattern can change between now and even 6, 7, 8 days from now. So it's very important, because even at day 5 here, again, you know, it's not all set in stone. You go out here till next Monday. This is September 14th. You know, you go out next Monday, things, again, could be very different at that point in time. So there's going to be a lot that we're going to have to watch kind of going forward with time. And for what it's worth here, this is the HVAS model here, again, resolving Tropical Depression 17 right now. Again, you know, this is the hour 90 forecast, about as long as it goes out to here on the experimental models. This is coming from courtesy of the of NOAA and the Hurricane Research Division down there in Miami. But you notice that, you know, Tropical Depression 17 is right here, 18 is right here. Again, both of these likely to intensify into a tropical storm. But again, you have a big ridge of high pressure right here. You can see this big ridge kind of dipping in right here. You have a pretty big ridge out here. But you notice what you're getting is on, you know, in the continental United States, you can see that trough flow. You can see it. Basically, that flow in the trough kind of streaming something much like that. So you have a trough that can be inferred in through here, with your axis probably being in through there. This is going to move off towards the east. That's going to shove this ridge eastward and probably then begin to pull our storms off generally towards the north and away from land. Now, like I said, you know, whether or not this happens, you know, whether this happens near Bermuda, or whether this, you know, happens sooner and out to sea and, you know, a lot quicker, remains to be the big question. But there's a lot of uncertainty still. And again, anywhere within this general area, kind of an area for margin basically, is right here. So it can be reasonably inferred that we're going to have to watch this. But right now, there's not really any significant land concerns for the United States or for the Lesser Antilles over the next several days or so. And like as I noted last night, and I talked about in the evening update yesterday, again, this ridge of high pressure towards the north right now is going to be kind of abating with this trough, and that is going to be moving off towards the east. And then we have our two systems down here, formerly 92 and 93L. Both are likely to recurve, but at what point, it remains the big question. Again, we have this trough that's going to be digging in, but we also have another ridge that's trying to push this trough off a little bit quicker. And then maybe this ridge is going to start to build back in over the next little while. Now, one potential problem that Tropical Depression 17 is going to have to face is a potential vorticity streamer. Basically, this is an upper level low in the atmosphere that's going to be causing some vertical wind shear. And you can see that right now, that Tropical Depression 17, the northern side of it is getting a little bit sheared off with about 20 to 25 knots of vertical wind shear. As this moves generally west towards west and northwest, this is going to encounter a more hostile environment with this potential vorticity streamer inducing vertical wind shear out of the southwesterly direction that is going to shear our storm and probably help to weaken it quite substantially. So that is going to be something that we are going to have to watch pretty carefully over the next several days or so. But again, as of right now, there's no threats to land from Tropical Depression 17 or Tropical Depression 18, except from 18 to the Cabo Verde Islands, with tropical storm conditions possible there tomorrow, late tonight into tomorrow. All right. With that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon, and morning, afternoon, and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys some more either later today or tomorrow morning. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great Labor Day, and I will talk to you guys later.